What if I told you that the same forces that made Roman olive oil traders richer than kings are creating today's billionaires? Throughout history, certain industries have repeatedly generated obscene wealth, and there's a formula. From spice routes to space commerce, from medieval craftsmanship to quantum computing, the pattern is crystal clear. I've tracked down the most profitable industries across 4,000 years of human civilization, and the data reveals something shocking about what's coming next. The biggest fortunes of the next century are being built right now. But first we need to understand how ancient merchants turned liquid gold into empires that lasted centuries. Ancient foundations. Olive oil to modern food tech. Roman merchants didn't just sell olive oil, they controlled empires. A single olive oil trading family could generate more wealth than entire kingdoms possessed in their treasuries. These weren't corner store operations. Roman olive oil barons owned massive estates across Spain, North Africa, and Greece, then shipped their liquid gold throughout the Mediterranean using sophisticated supply chains that connected 3 continents. The amphora shipping containers they used were the standardized packaging that made international trade possible on an industrial scale. But here's where it gets interesting. Today's food tech billionaires are playing the exact same game, just with lab-grown meat instead of pressed olives. Beyond Meat raised over $240 million before going public, while Impossible Foods pulled in $700 million in funding. These companies are valued at billions despite losing money on every product they sell, proving that disrupting ancient food systems still creates massive wealth even when the economics don't make sense yet. The Romans understood something fundamental about food economics that modern investors are rediscovering. Premium olive oil in ancient Rome commanded profit margins of 300% because wealthy Romans would pay anything for the finest pressed oil from specific groves. Sound familiar? Today's plant-based meat companies use identical premium positioning strategies, charging $12 for a fake burger that costs $3 to make. They're selling the same scarcity and exclusivity that Roman olive oil merchants perfected 2 millennia ago. Roman olive oil families didn't stop at olives. They expanded into wine production, grain trading, and luxury goods, diversifying their food empires across multiple products. Pat Brown from Impossible Foods follows the same playbook, expanding from fake meat into dairy alternatives and sustainability markets. The business model hasn't changed at all. Ancient traders knew that controlling food meant controlling power, and today's $8.2 trillion global food market proves that truth remains unchanged. Roman olive oil merchants established the first multinational corporations by controlling production, distribution, and pricing across vast territories. Modern food tech companies are attempting the same dominance, just replacing olive groves with vertical farms and traditional livestock with bioreactors. The technology changed, but the fundamental principle of food control creating massive wealth has remained constant for 4,000 years. This same pattern of controlling entire industries through specialized knowledge and exclusive access would define the next great wealth engine. Medieval craftsmanship to advanced manufacturing. Medieval guilds operated like economic cartels that would make modern monopolists jealous. The Blacksmiths' Guild of London didn't just control who could make horseshoes and weapons, they dictated prices, wages, and even who was allowed to learn the trade. These weren't loose associations of craftsmen. Guild masters wielded political power that could shut down entire cities if their demands weren't met. But their stranglehold on medieval commerce looks quaint compared to today's $14.8 trillion manufacturing empire that spans every continent and produces everything from smartphones to submarines. The real transformation came when craftsman value rose dramatically with the first factories shifting from land to manufacturing as the primary driver of wealth. A master blacksmith in 1400 could afford to employ 50 people and support their families through his workshop's earnings. The most successful guild masters lived like nobility, owning multiple properties and controlling substantial wealth. Today's manufacturing CEOs operate on a completely different scale. Tim Cook at Apple oversees operations that employ over 150,000 people directly, while Apple's manufacturing partners employ millions more. The company's annual revenue exceeds the gross domestic product of most nations, generating wealth that medieval guild masters couldn't have imagined. Medieval guilds invented trade secrets and apprenticeship systems that protected their competitive advantages for centuries. Apprentices signed binding contracts that prevented them from sharing techniques with competing workshops. Modern manufacturing giants spend billions on industrial espionage and corporate training programs, protecting proprietary processes while developing skilled workforces. The guild system essentially created the blueprint for modern corporate security and employee development. The shift from handcrafted goods to mass production during the Industrial Revolution mirrors today's transformation to AI-driven smart factories. Medieval artisans took weeks to craft individual items, but assembly line efficiency allowed factories to produce thousands of identical products daily. Now, manufacturers implement artificial intelligence systems that adjust production in real time, optimize supply chains automatically, and predict equipment failures before they happen. Medieval craftsmen who embraced new technologies like water-powered mills and improved metallurgy techniques expanded their businesses and accumulated substantial wealth. Those who insisted on traditional methods found themselves unable to compete and eventually disappeared. Companies that resist automation are being eliminated by competitors who leverage new technologies to reduce costs and improve quality. But even the most successful manufacturers of the Industrial Revolution would be stunned by the scale of wealth that emerged from steel and oil. Industrial Revolution, steel and oil to clean energy. Andrew Carnegie turned molten steel into a personal fortune worth over $400 billion in today's dollars, establishing the template that clean energy billionaires now follow to build massive empires in record time. Carnegie spent decades building his steel monopoly, acquiring competitors and controlling every aspect of production from iron ore mines to finished steel products. Today's renewable energy entrepreneurs are creating similar fortunes in a fraction of that time by riding the wave that's reshaping global economics, with the solar and wind market alone exceeding $400 billion in 2025. John D. Rockefeller became America's first billionaire by controlling oil production and distribution networks across the entire country. His Standard Oil monopoly generated unprecedented wealth by eliminating competition and manipulating prices. Now, the renewable energy market creates new billionaires as solar and wind companies capitalize on government subsidies, environmental regulations, and falling technology costs. The speed of wealth creation has accelerated dramatically, with some clean energy executives building nine-figure fortunes in less than 5 years. Steel and oil built the backbone of modern civilization. Carnegie steel constructed skyscrapers, bridges, and railroads that connected continents. Rockefeller's oil powered the engines that drove industrialization forward. But solar panels and wind turbines are systematically dismantling and replacing those same infrastructure systems. Coal power plants that operated for decades are being demolished to make room for solar farms. Oil refineries are being converted into renewable fuel production facilities. Geographic advantages that created industrial revolution fortunes are repeating in renewable energy markets. Pennsylvania's oil deposits made Rockefeller rich, while Texas now generates massive wealth from wind power that takes advantage of consistent prairie winds. Nevada's desert sun creates ideal conditions for solar energy production, generating billions in renewable energy revenue. The locations changed, but the principle of exploiting natural resource advantages remains identical. Industrial Revolution tycoons fought environmental regulations that threatened their profit margins. Clean energy companies profit directly from those same regulatory pressures through carbon taxes and renewable energy mandates that favor their technologies over fossil fuels. But even the massive fortunes built from steel and oil pale in comparison to what happened when entrepreneurs discovered they could turn information itself into the ultimate commodity. Information age, Silicon Valley to AI dominance. Silicon Valley produced more billionaires in 50 years than every previous industry in human history combined. The personal computer revolution, internet boom, and mobile technology created wealth on an unprecedented scale. But artificial intelligence is compressing that entire timeline into just 5 years. Companies that took decades to build billion-dollar valuations are now being created in months by AI startups that exist primarily as algorithms and ambitious promises. The personal computer revolution generated trillions in wealth by putting computing power into every home and office. Microsoft built a software empire by licensing operating systems to computer manufacturers worldwide. Apple created hardware that people actually wanted to use, turning technology into fashion statements. But artificial intelligence projects economic value that exceeds all previous technological revolutions combined. The global software industry alone is projected to reach $702 billion by 2024, while AI could boost global GDP by up to 15%. AI doesn't just improve existing processes, it replaces human intelligence across entire industries simultaneously. Microsoft and Apple spent decades perfecting their products before achieving massive valuations. They built physical manufacturing capabilities, distribution networks, and customer support systems. Today's AI companies receive massive valuations before releasing consumer products. OpenAI's latest funding round implied a $29 billion valuation despite generating minimal revenue compared to traditional tech giants. Anthropic raised billions while still developing their core AI models. The internet connected billions of people and created massive advertising revenues by tracking user behavior and selling targeted ads. Google and Facebook built empires on this model, generating hundreds of billions from digital advertising. Now, AI automates the very jobs that built those internet fortunes. AI systems write advertising copy, analyze user data, and optimize campaigns without human intervention. Silicon Valley's venture capital model traditionally funded thousands of startups with small initial investments, expecting most to fail, while a few generated massive returns. AI companies raise billion-dollar rounds in their first year of operation. Traditional startup funding timelines have been obliterated by AI companies that require enormous computational resources and top-tier talent from day one. Tech giants dominated through data collection, gathering information about users to improve services and target advertisements. AI companies create value from data in ways that seemed impossible years ago, using machine learning to identify patterns and generate insights that humans never discovered. But even artificial intelligence wealth creation looks conservative compared to what happened when people discovered they could manufacture scarcity from nothing but computer code. Digital gold rush, cryptocurrency, and blockchain. Bitcoin transformed ordinary programmers into multimillionaires during market surges, but the cryptocurrency revolution represents something far more significant than individual wealth creation. Traditional gold miners spent years digging through mountains and riverbeds, risking everything for the chance to strike it rich. Crypto traders achieve similar wealth accumulation by clicking by buttons on their phones, riding digital price waves that can multiply investments by thousands of % in days. Bitcoin's anonymous creator became one of the world's richest people without ever revealing their identity, proving that digital scarcity generates real wealth. Satoshi Nakamoto owns approximately 1 million bitcoins worth over $60 billion, yet nobody knows who they are or where they live. This mysterious figure created artificial scarcity through mathematical algorithms, limiting Bitcoin's total supply to 21 million coins and making each one more valuable as demand increases. The $2.3 trillion cryptocurrency market operates continuously, unlike traditional stock markets that close evenings and weekends. Crypto markets never sleep, creating constant opportunities for profit and devastating losses. Traders wake up to find their portfolios doubled or destroyed by overnight price movements that would take months to occur in traditional markets. This 24/7 trading environment compresses years of market activity into weeks. Blockchain technology promises to revolutionize banking, supply chains, healthcare, and voting systems, but most applications remain theoretical. Companies add blockchain to their business plans and watch their valuations skyrocket, despite having no working products. The technology's potential appears limitless, yet practical implementations face technical obstacles that may take decades to solve. Cryptocurrency mining operations consume more electricity than entire countries like Argentina, yet miners continue expanding their operations because profits justify environmental costs. Bitcoin mining facilities house thousands of specialized computers that solve mathematical puzzles continuously, earning digital rewards for their computational work. These mining farms operate in regions with cheap electricity, often powered by coal plants that generate massive carbon emissions. Digital asset exchanges like Coinbase and Binance generate billions in trading fees by facilitating cryptocurrency transactions. Coinbase earned $7.4 billion in revenue during 2021, primarily from trading fees, proving that enabling speculation can be more profitable than speculating. These exchanges charge fees on every transaction while users gamble on price movements. The cryptocurrency industry's boom-bust cycles mirror historical commodity markets, but compressed into time frames that previous generations would have considered impossible. But while digital currencies created fortunes from computer code, entrepreneurs were simultaneously discovering that the ultimate frontier for wealth creation existed far beyond Earth's atmosphere. Space economy, from science fiction to $630 billion reality, space exploration was once the exclusive domain of government agencies spending taxpayer billions on national prestige projects. NASA and Soviet space programs burned through enormous budgets, launching astronauts and satellites, treating space as a scientific frontier rather than a business opportunity. Private companies have completely transformed this dynamic by turning rocket launches into profitable enterprises worth hundreds of billions. What governments viewed as expensive experiments, entrepreneurs recognized as untapped markets waiting for commercial exploitation. SpaceX revolutionized the entire industry by making rockets reusable instead of disposable. Traditional rockets cost hundreds of millions per launch because every component was used once then discarded in the ocean. Elon Musk's company developed landing technology that brings rocket boosters back to Earth intact, cutting launch costs by 90% and making space accessible to commercial customers. This breakthrough opens space to businesses that couldn't previously afford orbital access. The global space economy reached approximately $600 billion in 2023, encompassing far more than rocket launches. Satellite internet constellations beam broadband to remote locations worldwide, generating billions in subscription revenue. SpaceX alone generates over $8 billion annually from launch services and Starlink subscriptions, proving that space commerce creates sustainable business models. The pace of satellite launches has accelerated dramatically, with companies deploying thousands of satellites annually compared to dozens just a decade ago. Space tourism companies charge wealthy customers $450,000 for brief trips to zero gravity, proving that exclusive experiences command premium pricing regardless of duration. Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic sell minutes of weightlessness to billionaires seeking unique bragging rights. These companies demonstrate that space access creates its own luxury market. Satellite constellations provide internet service to areas where traditional infrastructure is impossible or unprofitable to build. Starlink generates revenue from individual subscribers, while also securing billion-dollar contracts with governments and telecommunications companies needing global connectivity. Space manufacturing offers possibilities impossible on Earth. Microgravity environments could produce perfect crystals for electronics, ultra-pure pharmaceuticals, and advanced materials that gravity distorts during terrestrial production. Companies are investing billions in orbital factories that could revolutionize multiple industries simultaneously. The race to establish permanent lunar and Martian bases combines scientific curiosity with resource extraction profits. What began as government-funded competition between superpowers has evolved into private sector rivalry that determines which companies control the ultimate high ground above Earth. But while entrepreneurs were conquering space, scientists were discovering they could manipulate the very building blocks of human existence. Biotechnology revolution. Healthcare's $2.1 trillion transformation. Biotechnology. Companies are literally rewriting the human genetic code and charging whatever prices they want for therapies that existed only in science fiction movies 20 years ago. These aren't incremental improvements to existing drugs. Companies like Bluebird Bio and Spark Therapeutics developed gene therapies that replace defective genes with functional copies, essentially curing genetic diseases that plague families for generations. The technology sounds like magic, but the pricing reflects pure capitalism. Gene therapy treatments cost between $300,000 and $2.1 million per patient. Yet demand keeps growing because biotech companies prove they can cure previously incurable diseases. Zolgensma, a gene therapy for spinal muscular atrophy, costs $2.1 million for a single treatment but prevents lifetime disability and death. Parents mortgage their homes and launch crowdfunding campaigns to afford these treatments, demonstrating that people will pay anything for life-saving medicine. The $1 trillion biotech market faces complete transformation from innovations that promise to extend human lifespan and dramatically improve quality of life. Traditional pharmaceuticals treat symptoms, but biotechnology addresses root causes of disease through genetic modification, cellular reprogramming, and molecular engineering. Companies are developing treatments for aging itself, positioning longevity as a product rather than a natural process. Pharmaceutical companies spend $200 billion annually on research and development, but successful biotech breakthroughs generate revenues for decades through patent protection systems. A single approved gene therapy can earn billions over its patent lifetime while competitors remain blocked from developing similar treatments. This government-enforced monopoly system allows biotech companies to charge premium prices without competition. Personalized medicine allows biotech companies to create custom treatments tailored to individual patients' genetic profiles, commanding premium prices for bespoke healthcare solutions. CAR-T cell therapy extracts patients' immune cells, genetically modifies them to fight cancer, then reinfuses them back into the same patient. This individualized approach costs $400,000 per treatment, but generates higher success rates than standard chemotherapy. Biotech startups raise hundreds of millions in funding based on promising laboratory results before conducting human trials. Moderna raised $1.1 billion before their COVID vaccine proved effective in humans. Investors bet enormous sums on unproven science because successful biotech companies generate returns that dwarf other industries. But even genetic engineering looks conservative compared to technologies that could make biological limitations completely irrelevant. The next frontier, quantum computing and neural interfaces. Quantum computing promises to solve mathematical problems that would take traditional computers millions of years to complete, potentially revolutionizing drug discovery, financial modeling, and cryptography in ways that could reshape entire industries overnight. Current supercomputers struggle with certain calculations that quantum machines could handle in minutes, creating opportunities for companies that master this technology to gain insurmountable competitive advantages. IBM and Google are pouring billions into quantum research, racing to achieve breakthroughs and capture first-mover benefits in what could become the most valuable technology sector ever created. IBM's quantum computers already perform specific calculations faster than classical machines, while Google continues advancing their quantum processors. These companies understand that whoever controls quantum computing will control the next phase of technological evolution. However, the computational demands of emerging technologies are staggering. AI systems alone will require an additional 128 gigawatts of electricity supply by 2030, equivalent to powering entire nations just to meet processing demands. Neural interfaces represent an even more radical transformation, promising direct brain-computer communication that could create entirely new industries around human-machine integration. Companies like Neuralink are developing brain implants that allow paralyzed patients to control computers with their thoughts, but the technology's applications extend far beyond medical treatments. Direct neural control could revolutionize gaming, education, and communication in ways that make smartphones look primitive. The quantum computing market is projected to reach hundreds of billions in value despite current technical limitations that make these machines extremely difficult to operate. Quantum computers require temperatures colder than outer space and specialized environments that cost millions to maintain. Yet, investors continue funding quantum startups because the potential rewards justify the enormous technical challenges. Brain-computer interfaces attract massive investments from tech billionaires who believe neural connections represent the next evolution of human capability. Elon Musk invested $280 million in Neuralink, while other billionaires fund competing brain-computer interface companies. These investors understand that whoever controls direct brain-computer communication could dominate human-machine interaction for generations. These emerging technologies could create wealth on a scale that makes today's tech billionaires look modest by comparison. Quantum computing and neural interfaces represent fundamental shifts in how humans interact with information and machines, potentially generating economic value that exceeds all previous technological revolutions combined. But while these technologies promise to transform how we process information and interface with machines, there's an industry that's already perfected the art of turning human necessity into guaranteed profit through pharmaceutical monopolies empires that would be impossible in any other profit margins. Pharmaceutical companies operate under government-granted monopolies that would be illegal in any other industry. Patent systems give drug makers exclusive rights to sell their medications for up to 20 years, allowing them to charge whatever prices the market will bear for life-saving treatments. Governments essentially hand pharmaceutical companies permission to eliminate competition and maximize profits on products that people need to survive. A single successful drug generates tens of billions in revenue over its patent lifetime, making pharmaceutical research the highest-stakes gambling operation in modern business. Lipitor earned Pfizer over $125 billion during its patent period. Humira generated more than $200 billion for Abvai before generic competition arrived. These blockbuster medications create more wealth than entire industries, but developing them requires billion-dollar investments with no guarantee of success. The global pharmaceutical market is projected to reach $1.6 trillion by the end of 2024, demonstrating how patent protection transforms human necessity into guaranteed revenue streams. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed how quickly pharmaceutical companies develop and profit from new treatments when governments provide unlimited resources and fast-track regulatory approval. Pfizer and Moderna created effective vaccines in less than a year, earning tens of billions in revenue through government contracts and global distribution deals. The pandemic proved that pharmaceutical companies can move at lightning speed when financial incentives align with public health emergencies. Generic drug manufacturers wait patiently for patents to expire, then capture massive market share by offering identical medications at fraction of original prices. Generic competition typically reduces drug prices by 80% or more, proving that patent protection creates artificial scarcity rather than reflecting actual production costs. The moment patents expire, pharmaceutical monopolies collapse as generic manufacturers flood markets with cheaper alternatives. Pharmaceutical companies spend more money on marketing than research and development, proving that selling drugs generates higher returns than discovering them. Marketing budgets exceed R&D spending at most major pharmaceutical companies, with billions allocated to advertising campaigns that target doctors and consumers directly. Rare disease treatments command premium prices because small patient populations have few alternatives. Orphan drugs treating conditions affecting fewer than 200,000 patients cost hundreds of thousands per year, allowing companies to charge millions per treatment without competition concerns. The pharmaceutical industry's government-protected monopolies create wealth through artificial scarcity, but there's one investment category that generates millionaires through natural scarcity that becomes more valuable with every passing generation. Real estate, the eternal wealth builder. Land creates millionaires through mathematical certainty because they're not making any more of it while populations keep growing. Every day, roughly 385,000 babies are born worldwide while 0 new continents appear. This supply-demand imbalance drives property values higher over decades, creating wealth for anyone smart enough to buy dirt and wait. The global real estate market is forecast to reach $635 trillion by the end of 2024, demonstrating how land scarcity translates into massive economic value. Property development transforms worthless land into valuable assets through pure financial alchemy. Developers buy empty lots for thousands, then build shopping centers or apartment complexes worth millions. A developer who bought farmland outside Austin for $5,000 per acre in 1990 could sell developed lots for $500,000 per acre today, earning returns exceeding 1,000% on initial investments by understanding zoning laws, construction costs, and market demand. Urban real estate appreciates faster than rural property because cities concentrate economic activity and create demand for limited space. Manhattan land sells for $1,000 per square foot, while farmland in Nebraska costs $7,000 per acre. Cities attract businesses, jobs, and population growth that drive property values higher, while rural areas often lose residents to urban migration. Commercial real estate generates steady rental income while appreciating in value, providing both cash flow and long-term wealth accumulation. Office buildings, shopping centers, and warehouses produce monthly rent checks for decades, while their underlying value increases. This dual benefit makes commercial property attractive to investors seeking predictable income streams. Property ownership provides leverage opportunities that multiply investment returns. Buyers control valuable assets with relatively small down payments, typically 10 to 20% of purchase price. This leverage amplifies gains when property values rise, allowing investors to control million-dollar properties with $100,000 investments. Real estate markets experience boom-bust cycles that create temporary losses, but over long periods, property values outpace inflation and generate substantial returns. The 2008 housing crash wiped out trillions in property values, yet real estate recovered and reached new highs within a decade. The fundamental principle remains unchanged across centuries. Land stays scarce while populations grow, but there's another industry that's mastered the art of turning basic human necessity into global economic dominance through pure volume and speed. Textiles and apparel, from cotton kings to fast fashion. Cotton transformed entire continents into wealth-generating machines by connecting southern plantation owners with northern textile manufacturers and British mill operators who dominated global markets. Cotton wasn't just a crop, it was the foundation of international commerce that made entire regions wealthy. Southern planters accumulated massive fortunes from slave labor, while northern industrialists built textile empires processing raw cotton into cloth, and British manufacturers controlled world markets with advanced spinning and weaving technologies that generated profits comparable to today's tech giants. Modern fast fashion companies like Zara and H&M operate like medieval guilds with global reach, controlling every aspect of production while generating billions by rapidly copying high-end designs and selling them at mass market prices within weeks of runway shows. These companies employ armies of designers who attend fashion weeks, photograph luxury collections, then recreate similar styles using cheaper materials and manufacturing processes. Zara can design, manufacture, and distribute new clothing items in just 2 weeks, allowing them to respond instantly to changing fashion trends while maintaining the same monopolistic control that medieval craft guilds wielded over their local markets. Luxury fashion brands maintain premium pricing through artificial scarcity and brand prestige, with Hermes handbags costing more than most people's cars. A Birkin bag starts at $40,000 and can reach $500,000 for exotic leather versions. These companies deliberately limit production to create waiting lists and maintain exclusivity, proving that perceived value matters more than actual materials or construction costs. The global apparel market operates on razor-thin margins for manufacturers, but generates substantial profits for brands and retailers who control distribution and marketing. Clothing factories in Bangladesh earn cents per garment, while brands like Nike and Adidas charge hundreds of dollars for shoes that cost less than $20 to manufacture. This geographic separation allows companies to minimize manufacturing expenses while maintaining premium pricing power. Sustainable fashion represents a growing market segment as consumers increasingly demand environmentally responsible clothing options. Companies like Patagonia charge premium prices for eco-friendly materials and ethical manufacturing practices. The rise of e-commerce has disrupted traditional retail models, allowing direct-to-consumer brands to capture margins previously claimed by department stores. Fashion cycles have accelerated from seasonal collections to weekly drops, creating constant demand for new products through psychological pressure to stay current with rapidly changing trends. But while fashion companies profit from manufacturer desire, there's an industry that's built fortunes by extracting the raw materials that make modern civilization possible. Mining and metals, digging for digital gold. Gold and silver have maintained value for thousands of years, surviving empires, currencies, and economic collapses. But rare earth elements needed for electronics have become more valuable than these traditional precious metals. Neodymium, used in smartphone speakers and electric vehicle motors, sells for $140 per kilogram, while silver costs $24 per ounce. Lithium carbonate reached $78,000 per ton in 2022 as electric vehicle production exploded worldwide. Mining companies extract materials essential for modern technology that most people never think about. Every smartphone contains over 30 different metals, including lithium for batteries, cobalt for charging circuits, and copper for electrical systems. A single Tesla Model S requires 25 kilograms of lithium, 10 kilograms of cobalt, and 183 kilograms of copper. Mining companies like Albemarle and SQM control global lithium supplies, generating billions as electric vehicle production scales exponentially. The transition to renewable energy created massive demand for specific metals that traditional mining companies never prioritized. Lithium prices increased 2,800% between 2020 and 2022 as Tesla, Ford, and General Motors signed billion-dollar battery contracts. Solar panels require silver for electrical conductivity, consuming 10% of global silver production. Wind turbines need rare earth magnets containing neodymium and dysprosium. Data centers powering cloud computing and artificial intelligence consumed 500 terawatt-hours of electricity in 2023, projected to reach 1,500 terawatt-hours by 2030. This massive energy demand drives mining operations for copper wiring, rare earth elements for server components, and lithium for backup power systems. The digital economy requires enormous quantities of physical materials that must be extracted from the ground. Traditional mining operations require massive capital investments exceeding $5 billion for major projects, but successful mines operate profitably for decades. Barrick Gold's Goldstrike mine in Nevada has produced over 40 million ounces of gold since 1987, generating tens of billions in revenue. Recycling precious metals from electronic waste has become a profitable industry worth $49 billion annually. Urban mining recovers more gold from discarded electronics than traditional gold mines extract from ore. 1 ton of old smartphones contains 300 grams of gold compared to 5 grams per ton of gold ore. Geopolitical tensions affect metal prices dramatically as countries secure supplies of materials critical for national security. China controls 80% of rare earth element production, creating supply chain vulnerabilities for American technology companies. The mining industry demonstrates how controlling essential raw materials generates wealth regardless of technological changes, because every new technology requires metals that must be extracted from the ground. But there's one industry that discovered how to eliminate physical production costs entirely. Technology. Software eats the world. Software companies achieve profit margins that would be impossible in physical industries because digital products can be distributed instantly without manufacturing costs. Microsoft writes Windows once, then sells millions of copies without producing anything physical. Each additional sale generates pure profit after covering initial development expenses. Traditional manufacturers must produce, ship, and store physical products for every sale, but software companies distribute digital products at near zero marginal cost. The global software market is projected to reach $702 billion by 2024, demonstrating how digital distribution creates unprecedented economic scale. Technology platforms create network effects where each additional user makes the service more valuable, leading to winner-take-all market dynamics. Facebook becomes more useful as more friends join the platform. LinkedIn grows more valuable as more professionals create profiles. These network effects create insurmountable competitive advantages because users won't switch to platforms where their connections don't exist. Cloud computing transforms software from one-time purchases to subscription services, generating predictable recurring revenue streams that investors love. Adobe Creative Suite, once sold for $2,600 as a single purchase, now Adobe charges $600 annually through Creative Cloud subscriptions. Microsoft Office generates billions in recurring revenue through Office 365 subscriptions instead of selling software packages once every few years. Big tech companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Google generate more revenue than most countries' entire economies. Apple's annual revenue exceeds the gross domestic product of Switzerland. Microsoft generates more money than the entire economy of Israel. Google's parent company Alphabet earns more revenue than the GDP of Finland. Software automation eliminates human jobs while creating massive value for technology company shareholders. Automated trading systems execute millions of stock transactions without human traders. Customer service chatbots handle support requests without human agents. Manufacturing robots replace assembly line workers while generating profits for software companies that program them. The mobile app economy created new categories of millionaire entrepreneurs who build successful applications with minimal startup costs. Angry Birds generated hundreds of millions in revenue from a game created by a small Finnish team. Instagram sold for $1 billion after being built by just 13 employees. Artificial intelligence is beginning to automate software development itself, potentially disrupting the very industry that created it. AI coding assistants write functional code from simple descriptions, reducing the need for human programmers. Technology companies reinvest profits into research and development, creating continuous innovation cycles that maintain competitive advantages. But even the most profitable software companies depend on an industry that creates wealth by manipulating money itself. Finance and banking, the money multipliers. Banks create money through fractional reserve lending, a system that allows them to profit from the difference between interest rates they pay depositors and rates they charge borrowers. When you deposit money in a bank, they keep a fraction in reserve and lend out the remainder to other customers. This borrowed money gets deposited in other banks, which then lend out most of it again, creating new money throughout the banking system. Banks collect interest on loans while paying minimal interest on deposits, generating billions in profit from money that multiplies through the lending process. This financial leverage has enabled economic expansion that could boost global GDP by 15% as digital technologies reshape how money flows through the economy. Investment banks generate enormous fees by facilitating mergers, acquisitions, and public offerings for corporations and governments. Goldman Sachs earned $2.8 billion in investment banking fees during 2023 by advising companies on billion-dollar deals. These banks charge percentage-based fees on transaction values, meaning larger deals generate proportionally larger profits. A single merger worth $50 billion can generate $500 million in advisory fees for the investment banks involved. Hedge funds and private equity firms manage trillions of dollars in assets, collecting management fees regardless of investment performance. Hedge funds typically charge 2% annual management fees plus 20% of profits generated. A hedge fund managing $10 billion collects $200 million annually in management fees before generating any returns for investors. Private equity firms like Blackstone manage over $900 billion in assets, generating billions in management fees while buying and restructuring companies. Financial technology companies are disrupting traditional banking by offering services with lower costs and higher convenience. Square processes billions in payment transactions while charging lower fees than traditional credit card processors. Robinhood eliminated trading commissions that traditional brokerages charged, forcing established firms to match their pricing. Credit card companies profit from transaction fees and interest charges, generating billions from consumer spending and debt. Visa and MasterCard collect fees on every transaction processed through their networks. Credit card interest rates average 20% annually, while companies borrow money at much lower rates. Insurance companies collect premiums and invest the money until claims are paid, essentially operating as investment funds with guaranteed income. The financial sector's profits come from facilitating other industries' activities, but all these digital transactions require physical infrastructure that connects every corner of the globe. Telecommunications, connecting the world for profit. Telecommunications companies built the infrastructure that enables the modern digital economy by laying millions of miles of fiber optic cables, constructing thousands of cell towers, and launching satellite networks that connect every corner of the planet. These companies invested trillions of dollars creating the physical backbone that allows instant communication across continents. Without their massive infrastructure investments, the internet economy simply couldn't exist. The shift from landline to mobile communications created entirely new revenue streams while making previous technologies obsolete overnight. Traditional phone companies generated revenue from monthly service fees and long-distance charges through copper wire networks. Mobile carriers discovered they could charge customers for voice minutes, text messages, and data usage simultaneously, multiplying revenue per customer while reducing infrastructure costs per connection. 5G networks require massive infrastructure investments exceeding $200 billion globally, but promise to enable new technologies like autonomous vehicles and smart cities that will generate trillions in economic value. The massive computational demands are driving electricity consumption growth of 4.3% annually, primarily from data centers and AI systems that require constant connectivity. Telecommunications companies are racing to build 5G infrastructure because whoever controls the fastest networks will capture the most valuable customers and applications. Data transmission has become far more valuable than voice communication as streaming services and cloud computing drive exponential bandwidth demand. Netflix alone accounts for 15% of global internet traffic, while video calls, file transfers, and software updates consume massive amounts of data that telecommunications companies monetize through usage fees. International telecommunications companies profit from connecting different countries and regions, charging premium rates for undersea cables and satellite links that enable global communications. These international connections generate higher margins than domestic services because fewer competitors can afford the massive infrastructure. Investments required. The Internet of Things promises to connect billions of devices from refrigerators to streetlights, creating new revenue opportunities for telecommunications providers who will charge monthly service fees for each connected device. Telecommunications infrastructure requires continuous upgrading to handle increasing data volumes and new technologies. Companies must constantly invest in faster equipment and expanded capacity to meet growing demand, creating ongoing capital requirements that protect established players from new competitors. But while telecommunications companies profit from connecting digital devices, there's an industry that discovered how to transform transportation itself from exclusive luxury into mass market necessity. Automotive, from horsepower to electric power. Henry Ford's assembly line production methods reduced Model T prices from $825 to $260, making cars affordable for middle-class workers who built them. This democratization of automobile ownership created massive companies like General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler that became economic powerhouses generating hundreds of billions in annual revenue. The automotive industry transformed from luxury goods accessible only to wealthy elites into mass-market products that ordinary families could afford, creating manufacturing giants that employ millions worldwide. Traditional automakers face complete disruption as electric vehicle companies achieve market valuations that seem to defy conventional logic. Tesla reached a market capitalization exceeding $800 billion despite selling fewer cars than Ford or General Motors. Traditional automakers sell millions more vehicles annually, but receive much lower stock market valuations because investors believe electric vehicles represent the future while internal combustion engines become obsolete. The renewable energy infrastructure supporting this transition is expanding rapidly, with 37 gigawatts of onshore solar capacity and 8 gigawatts of wind power added to support the growing electric vehicle market. Autonomous driving technology promises to revolutionize transportation by eliminating human drivers within the next 2 decades. Companies like Waymo and Cruise are testing self-driving cars that could make taxi drivers, truck drivers, and delivery workers unnecessary. This technology could transform car ownership from individual purchases to shared autonomous fleets that provide transportation services without human operators. The global automotive market generates over $3 trillion annually through vehicle sales, replacement parts, maintenance services, and financing arrangements. Car dealerships earn substantial profits from service departments and financing options that often exceed profits from actual vehicle sales. Extended warranties, maintenance contracts, and loan interest create ongoing revenue streams long after initial purchases. Automotive manufacturing requires massive capital investments in factories, robotic assembly lines, and specialized equipment that create enormous barriers to entry for potential competitors. Building a single automobile manufacturing plant costs billions of dollars and takes years to become operational. These capital requirements protect established automakers from new competitors who lack the financial resources to build manufacturing infrastructure. The transition to electric vehicles is forcing traditional automakers to completely redesign their business models and supply chains. Electric vehicles require different components, manufacturing processes, and service procedures than internal combustion engines. Ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft are changing how people use vehicles, particularly in urban areas where car ownership becomes less necessary. But while automotive companies profit from moving people from place to place, there's an entire economy built around what happens when people reach their destinations. Tourism and hospitality, selling experiences, hotels, airlines, and entertainment venues capture billions from travelers seeking memorable experiences beyond their daily routines. This massive economic engine employs hundreds of millions worldwide, from hotel housekeepers to airline pilots to tour guides who profit from humanity's desire to explore new places and escape routine life. Airlines operate on razor-thin profit margins, averaging just 3 to 5%, but generate massive revenues through sheer volume, with successful carriers like Delta and Emirates transporting over 200 million passengers annually. These companies earn billions by filling thousands of flights daily, charging premium prices for business class seats while packing economy sections with budget travelers. Fuel costs, maintenance, and labor consume most airline revenue, but consistent passenger demand keeps planes profitable. Hotels and resorts profit from providing temporary accommodations, with luxury properties commanding premium prices for superior experiences that wealthy travelers gladly pay. For Seasons charges $800 per night for rooms that budget hotels offer for $80, proving that hospitality profits come from perceived value rather than actual costs. Luxury resorts generate additional revenue through spa services, fine dining, and exclusive activities that multiply profit per guest. The sharing economy completely disrupted traditional hospitality through platforms like Airbnb, allowing ordinary homeowners to compete directly with established hotel chains by renting spare bedrooms and vacation properties. Airbnb hosts generated over $15 billion in 2023 by offering unique accommodations that hotels cannot replicate, from tree houses to castle rentals that create memorable experiences. Tourism depends entirely on discretionary spending, making it extremely vulnerable to economic downturns, but highly profitable during boom periods when consumers have extra money for travel. The 2008 recession devastated tourism revenue, while economic recovery periods generate explosive growth as pent-up travel demand returns. Destination marketing organizations invest billions attracting tourists because visitor spending provides enormous economic benefits to local communities. Las Vegas spends hundreds of millions marketing itself globally because each tourist spends an average of $827 during their visit, generating tax revenue and employment for thousands of residents. The COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated tourism's vulnerability to external shocks, eliminating international travel almost overnight and bankrupting countless tourism businesses. However, the industry's remarkable resilience became apparent as travel demand returned aggressively once restrictions lifted, proving that human desire for experiences creates unstoppable long-term demand. But all these travelers need somewhere to stay when they arrive, and the companies that build those destinations have discovered their own formula for converting growth into guaranteed profits. Construction companies profit directly from population growth and economic development because expanding societies require infrastructure, housing, and commercial buildings that didn't exist before. Every new city needs roads, bridges, schools, hospitals, and office buildings. Growing populations need apartments, houses, shopping centers, and factories. Construction companies capture this economic expansion by building the physical structures that enable modern life, generating billions in revenue from projects that governments and private developers commission. Large construction projects generate substantial revenues, but require massive capital investments and carry enormous financial risks. Building a skyscraper costs hundreds of millions and takes years to complete, with contractors fronting enormous expenses for materials, equipment, and labor before receiving full payment. A single cost overrun or construction delay can eliminate all profits from major projects. Successful construction companies manage these risks by securing financing, controlling expenses, and maintaining strict project timelines that prevent budget disasters. Specialized construction services command premium prices because companies that master complex projects earn much higher margins than general contractors handling basic work. Companies specializing in hospital construction, bridge engineering, or high-rise buildings charge premium rates for expertise that general contractors cannot provide. These specialized firms invest heavily in advanced equipment and skilled workers, then earn substantial returns by solving construction challenges that ordinary companies cannot handle. Construction cycles follow predictable economic patterns, with building booms during prosperous periods and severe slowdowns during recessions. When the economy grows, businesses expand facilities and families buy homes, creating massive demand for construction services. Economic downturns eliminate construction projects almost immediately as companies postpone expansion plans and consumers delay home purchases. Government infrastructure spending provides steady revenue streams for construction companies, though political changes can dramatically affect project funding. Highway construction, bridge repairs, and public building projects generate consistent work for contractors who secure government contracts. However, budget cuts or political priorities can cancel major projects suddenly, leaving construction companies without expected revenue. The construction industry's profits depend entirely on successfully managing complex projects while controlling costs and maintaining quality standards that satisfy clients and regulators simultaneously. But construction companies face an inherent limitation because they can only profit when disasters don't happen, while there's an entire industry built around profiting specifically when disasters do occur. Insurance. Profiting from risk management. Insurance companies collect premiums for millions of customers and pay claims to the relatively few who experience losses, generating massive profits from statistical probability and mathematical certainty. This business model works because most customers never file major claims, allowing insurance companies to keep premium payments while covering only a small percentage of policyholders who actually need payouts. Life insurance companies invest premium payments for decades before paying death benefits, essentially operating as long-term investment funds with guaranteed income streams. When customers pay life insurance premiums at age 30, companies invest that money for potentially 50 years before paying death benefits. MetLife manages over $600 billion in assets, generating investment returns on customer premiums while waiting decades to pay claims. This extended timeline allows life insurers to earn substantial investment profits on money that eventually gets paid to beneficiaries. Property and casualty insurance generates steady revenue streams by providing essential risk management services that individuals and businesses cannot survive without. Homeowners insurance protects against fire, theft, and natural disasters. Auto insurance covers accident damage and liability claims. Commercial insurance protects businesses from lawsuits and property damage. These services are legally required in many cases, creating captive customer bases that must purchase coverage regardless of price. Reinsurance companies insure other insurance companies, spreading risk across global markets and generating profits from diversification strategies that individual insurers cannot achieve alone. Munich Re and Swiss Re collect billions in premiums from insurance companies seeking to reduce their exposure to catastrophic losses. When Hurricane Katrina caused $80 billion in damages, reinsurance companies absorbed much of the financial impact, protecting individual insurers from bankruptcy. Insurance companies employ thousands of actuaries and data scientists who calculate risk probabilities and set premiums that virtually guarantee profitability. These specialists analyze accident rates, death statistics, and natural disaster frequencies to price policies accurately. Climate change creates new risks and opportunities as extreme weather events become more frequent, forcing insurers to raise premiums while expanding coverage for previously rare disasters. Health insurance companies navigate complex regulatory environments while managing medical costs and providing coverage to millions of Americans. The insurance industry's profits come from accurately assessing risk and charging appropriate premiums while investing reserves wisely until claims require payment. But while insurance companies profit from managing earthbound risks, there's an entire industry that's discovered how to generate billions by conquering the ultimate frontier above our heads. Aerospace, reaching for the sky and beyond. Aerospace companies generate billions from commercial aviation, defense contracts, and space exploration by serving both government agencies and private sector customers who need advanced flying machines and orbital capabilities. These companies operate in markets where individual products cost hundreds of millions while requiring decades of development and massive capital investments that create insurmountable barriers for potential competitors. Commercial aircraft manufacturers like Boeing and Airbus operate in a duopoly market where each plane sale generates hundreds of millions in revenue. A single Boeing 787 Dreamliner costs airlines $248 million, while Airbus A350 aircraft sell for $317 million each. These companies control global commercial aviation because building passenger jets requires decades of engineering expertise and billions in development costs that prevent new competitors from entering the market. Defense contractors profit enormously from government military spending that provides weapon systems, aircraft, and support services to armed forces worldwide. The renewable energy transition is creating massive infrastructure investments exceeding $400 billion annually, demonstrating how entire industries transform when governments prioritize new technologies over traditional systems. Military contractors adapt by developing advanced systems that incorporate emerging technologies while maintaining their exclusive relationships with defense departments globally. The space industry evolved from government-funded exploration programs into commercial ventures where private companies compete aggressively for launch contracts and satellite deployment services. SpaceX generates billions through NASA contracts and commercial satellite launches, While Blue Origin pursues government space exploration funding alongside private space tourism revenue. Aerospace manufacturing requires advanced technology and skilled labor that create massive barriers preventing new companies from competing against established players. Building aircraft engines demands metallurgy expertise, precision manufacturing capabilities, and safety certifications that take decades to develop. These technical requirements protect companies like Rolls-Royce and General Electric from potential competitors. International aerospace companies benefit directly from global trade and travel growth because economic expansion drives demand for air transportation services. As developing countries become wealthier, their citizens fly more frequently while their businesses require cargo transportation that generates aircraft orders. Aerospace companies invest heavily in research and development programs that create technologies, often finding applications in other industries. The aerospace industry's future depends entirely on continued innovation in fuel efficiency, safety systems, and space exploration capabilities that maintain competitive advantages. But while aerospace companies profit from moving people and cargo through the skies, there's an entire economy built around what people do with their free time once they reach their destinations. Entertainment and media, monetizing attention. Entertainment companies profit from capturing and monetizing human attention through movies, music, games, and digital content that keeps audiences engaged for hours daily. Disney generates over $82 billion annually by creating content that people watch repeatedly, from Marvel superhero films to animated classics that entertain multiple generations. Warner Bros. Discovery earns billions through movie studios, television networks, and streaming platforms that compete aggressively for viewer attention spans. Streaming services completely disrupted traditional media by offering on-demand content accessible anytime, creating subscription revenue models that generate predictable monthly income instead of relying on unpredictable advertising sales. These platforms transformed how people consume entertainment while eliminating the need for physical distribution networks that previously controlled media access. The gaming industry generates more revenue than movies and music combined, with successful games creating ongoing revenue streams through in-game purchases that extend far beyond initial sales prices. Fortnite earned Epic Games over $9 billion through cosmetic items and battle passes that players purchase repeatedly. Call of Duty generates billions annually through game sales, plus additional billions from downloadable content and virtual items. Social media platforms provide free services while generating massive advertising revenue by targeting users based on detailed personal data collected through browsing habits and engagement patterns. Meta earned $134 billion in 2023, primarily from advertising on Facebook and Instagram platforms. TikTok generates billions by selling targeted advertisements to brands seeking access to specific demographic groups. Content creators build massive audiences and generate substantial income through platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch that pay creators based on views, engagement, and subscriber counts. Top YouTubers earn millions annually through advertising revenue sharing, sponsorship deals, and merchandise sales to devoted fan bases. Intellectual property rights allow entertainment companies to profit from successful content for decades through licensing agreements and merchandising opportunities that extend far beyond original releases. Disney continues earning billions from Mickey Mouse merchandise and theme park attractions created nearly a century ago. The global entertainment market benefits from digital distribution that reduces production and shipping costs while expanding potential audiences to billions of internet users worldwide. Entertainment companies must constantly create new content to maintain audience interest, but all this digital content requires massive physical infrastructure to reach consumers worldwide. Logistics and transportation, moving the world's goods. Behind every piece of digital content lies a massive physical network that moves products from factories to doorsteps, generating hundreds of billions by solving the fundamental problem that producers and consumers rarely exist in the same location. Amazon spends over $80 billion annually on logistics operations, moving products from warehouses to customers worldwide. FedEx generates $90 billion in revenue by transporting packages that businesses and consumers need delivered quickly and reliably. Container shipping revolutionized international trade by standardizing cargo handling and reducing transportation costs by over 95% compared to previous methods. Before containerization, loading and unloading ships required armies of dock workers handling individual items for weeks. Standardized containers allow automated cranes to load entire ships in hours, making global trade economically viable. Maersk and other shipping giants transport over 240 million containers annually, earning billions from moving manufactured goods between continents. Express delivery services like FedEx and UPS generate massive profits by providing fast, reliable shipping for time-sensitive packages that customers pay premium prices to receive quickly. UPS earns over $100 billion annually by guaranteeing delivery times that allow businesses to operate without maintaining large inventories. These companies built extensive networks of trucks, planes, and sorting facilities that process millions of packages daily. The digital infrastructure supporting modern logistics consumes enormous amounts of energy, with data centers alone requiring 500 terawatt-hours of electricity annually to power the tracking systems, route optimization software, and warehouse automation that makes efficient delivery possible. Every package tracked through GPS, every optimized delivery route, and every automated sorting facility depends on massive computational power that runs continuously. Freight railroads move bulk commodities like coal, grain, and chemicals efficiently over long distances, generating steady revenues from industrial customers who need reliable transportation for heavy materials. BNSF Railway transports over 10 million carloads annually, earning billions from moving raw materials between production facilities. Trucking companies provide flexible transportation services, but face ongoing challenges from driver shortages and regulatory requirements that increase operating costs. The trucking industry moves 70% of all freight in America despite struggling with high turnover rates and fuel price volatility. The logistics industry's profits depend entirely on managing increasingly complex supply chains while controlling expenses and maintaining reliability standards that customers demand. But moving physical products represents only half the transportation revolution. As companies discovered they could eliminate warehouses entirely by connecting buyers and sellers directly through digital platforms. E-commerce, the digital marketplace revolution. E-commerce platforms revolutionized retail by connecting buyers and sellers globally without requiring physical storefronts, generating massive profits from transaction fees and advertising revenue that traditional retailers never imagined possible. eBay pioneered this model by allowing anyone to sell items online while collecting fees from successful transactions. Etsy generates billions by connecting crafters with customers worldwide, proving that digital marketplaces create value by eliminating geographic barriers between buyers and sellers. Amazon transformed from Jeff Bezos selling books from his garage into a global marketplace, generating over $500 billion in annual revenue by expanding far beyond its original vision. The company started as an online bookstore in 1994, but quickly added electronics, clothing, and eventually everything imaginable. Amazon's marketplace now hosts millions of third-party sellers who pay fees for access to customers, while Amazon Web Services generates additional billions by providing cloud computing infrastructure to other businesses. The global e-commerce market is projected to reach $8.09 trillion by 2028, demonstrating how digital marketplaces have fundamentally transformed retail economics. Online marketplaces benefit from powerful network effects where more buyers attract more sellers and vice versa, creating competitive advantages that become nearly impossible to overcome. E-commerce companies operate with dramatically lower overhead costs than traditional retailers while reaching much larger customer bases simultaneously. Physical stores require expensive real estate, lighting, heating, and sales staff for every location. Online retailers need warehouses and websites that can serve millions of customers without proportional increases in operating expenses. Digital payment systems enable seamless online transactions, with companies like PayPal, Stripe, and Square generating billions in fees from processing transactions. These payment processors collect small percentages from every purchase, earning money each time customers buy anything online. E-commerce data provides incredibly valuable insights into consumer behavior that allow companies to optimize pricing, inventory, and marketing strategies in real time. Online retailers track what customers view, how long they browse, and what they purchase, using this information to personalize recommendations and adjust prices dynamically. Mobile commerce expanded e-commerce access to billions of smartphone users worldwide, creating entirely new opportunities for growth. Shopping apps make purchasing as simple as tapping screens, while social media platforms integrate shopping features directly into their interfaces. The e-commerce industry continues evolving rapidly, with new technologies like augmented reality allowing customers to visualize products before purchasing, while artificial intelligence personalizes shopping experiences and predicts customer preferences with increasing accuracy. But all this digital commerce requires enormous amounts of electricity to power the servers, warehouses, and delivery networks that make online shopping possible, creating massive demand for reliable energy sources. Renewable energy powering the future. This growing energy demand has opened massive opportunities for companies that can generate electricity from sources that never run out. Renewable energy companies are benefiting massively from global commitments to reduce carbon emissions and transition away from fossil fuels that governments worldwide have pledged through climate agreements. The Paris Climate Accord forced 196 countries to commit to carbon reduction targets, creating guaranteed demand for clean energy technologies. NextEra Energy generates over $20 billion annually from wind and solar projects that governments actively subsidize and mandate through renewable energy standards. Solar and wind power costs have decreased dramatically over the past decade, making renewable energy competitive with traditional power sources without requiring government support. U.S. solar power capacity has grown from 1.2 gigawatts in 2008 to over 131 gigawatts in 2023, while solar now represents 3.4% of global electricity generation. Solar panel prices dropped 90% between 2010 and 2023, while wind turbine costs fell 70% during the same period. Utility-scale solar now costs $0.048 per kilowatt-hour compared to 5 to 7 cents for coal power, making renewables the cheapest electricity source in most markets. Government subsidies and tax incentives support renewable energy development by providing substantial financial benefits to companies and investors willing to fund clean energy projects. The Inflation Reduction Act provides $370 billion in renewable energy incentives over 10 years. Solar installation companies receive 30% federal tax credits, while wind projects qualify for production tax credits worth $0.026 per kilowatt-hour generated. Energy storage technology is solving renewable energy's intermittency problems by enabling reliable power generation from variable sources like solar and wind. Tesla's Megapack battery systems store excess renewable energy during peak production periods, then release electricity when wind stops blowing or sun stops shining. Battery storage costs dropped 80% since 2013, making renewable energy plus storage competitive with fossil fuel power plants. Renewable energy projects generate long-term revenue streams through power purchase agreements that provide predictable cash flows for decades. Utilities sign 20-year contracts guaranteeing fixed electricity prices from renewable projects, creating stable revenue streams that attract massive investment capital. Corporate customers increasingly demand renewable energy to meet sustainability goals, with Amazon, Google, and Microsoft signing contracts for over 15 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity. But even the most advanced renewable energy systems require skilled workers who understand complex technologies, creating massive demand for specialized knowledge that transforms learning itself into a profitable industry. Education and training. Investing in human capital. Companies that teach these specialized skills have built a massive industry by providing services that span from early childhood through professional development. The global biotech market alone is projected to reach $5.85 trillion by 2034, demonstrating how specialized knowledge creates enormous economic value. Pearson generates billions annually by publishing textbooks and educational materials, while companies like Kaplan earn hundreds of millions from test preparation services. These businesses understand that parents will pay premium prices for their children's educational advantages, creating reliable revenue streams that persist regardless of economic conditions. Online learning platforms have completely democratized access to education while creating scalable business models that reach millions of students without proportional increases in operating costs. Coursera serves over 100 million learners worldwide, collecting subscription fees and course payments from students who cannot attend traditional universities. Udemy generates hundreds of millions by allowing instructors to create courses that sell repeatedly without additional production costs. These platforms eliminated geographic barriers and reduced educational costs dramatically. Professional training and certification programs generate substantial revenue by helping workers develop skills needed for career advancement in rapidly changing job markets. Salesforce Trailhead trains millions of users on their software platform, creating certified professionals who drive demand for Salesforce products. Microsoft certification programs generate billions while ensuring workers can use their business software effectively. Higher education institutions charge premium prices for degrees that provide access to high-paying careers and social status that students cannot obtain elsewhere. Harvard's endowment exceeds $50 billion, funded by alumni who earn substantial returns on their educational investments. Universities operate like exclusive clubs where membership costs hundreds of thousands but provides lifetime networking benefits. Corporate training programs help companies improve employee performance while generating billions in revenue for training providers who customize educational content for business needs. IBM spends over $300 million annually on employee training, while companies like Dale Carnegie earn hundreds of millions providing leadership and communication skills training. Educational technology transforms how people learn through adaptive learning systems that personalize instruction for individual students using artificial intelligence. Khan Academy uses algorithms to identify knowledge gaps and adjust lesson difficulty automatically. But while education companies profit from teaching knowledge, there's an entire industry built around applying that knowledge to solve complex problems that organizations cannot handle internally. Consulting services, selling expertise. McKinsey & Company earns over $15 billion annually by advising Fortune 500 companies on strategic decisions, operational improvements, and organizational restructuring. Deloitte generates $60 billion through consulting services that help businesses navigate regulatory changes, technology implementations, and market disruptions. These firms profit by selling access to knowledge and experience that companies desperately need but cannot develop internally. Management consultants command premium fees for strategic advice, with top-tier firms charging $500 to $1,500 per hour for senior consultant time. Bain & Company partners bill clients at rates exceeding $2,000 hourly for specialized expertise in merger planning and corporate turnarounds. Boston Consulting Group charges similar rates while helping companies develop long-term strategies and competitive positioning. These astronomical hourly rates reflect the value that major corporations place on external strategic guidance during critical business decisions. Technology consulting has grown explosively as companies struggle to implement digital transformation initiatives and adopt new technologies that their internal IT departments cannot handle. Accenture generates $64 billion annually by helping businesses migrate to cloud computing, implement artificial intelligence systems, and modernize legacy software platforms. AI consulting in life sciences alone promises massive productivity gains as pharmaceutical companies use machine learning to accelerate drug discovery and optimize clinical trials. IBM's consulting division earns billions by assisting companies with cybersecurity upgrades and data analytics implementations that require specialized technical knowledge. Consulting firms benefit from extraordinarily high profit margins because their primary asset is human knowledge rather than expensive physical infrastructure like manufacturing equipment or retail locations. These companies invest primarily in hiring talented professionals and developing proprietary methodologies, then leverage that intellectual capital across multiple client engagements simultaneously. Specialized consulting services command significantly higher fees than general consulting because clients pay premium prices for deep expertise in specific areas like healthcare regulations, financial compliance, or supply chain optimization. Consulting companies scale operations by hiring talented professionals and leveraging their expertise across multiple client engagements, maximizing revenue from each expert consultant. The consulting industry benefits enormously from constant business change, as organizations continuously need external expertise to navigate new challenges, regulatory requirements, and market opportunities that emerge regularly. Successful consulting firms build long-term relationships with clients, generating recurring revenue through ongoing advisory services that extend far beyond initial project engagements. But while consulting companies profit from selling expertise, there's an entire category of businesses that discovered they could charge premium prices not for what their products do, luxury goods, but for how those products make customers premium feel about themselves. Luxury brands have mastered the ultimate business model by convincing customers to pay extraordinary prices for products whose value exists primarily in perception rather than function. These companies generate profit margins that would be impossible in any other industry by selling exclusivity, status, and emotional satisfaction rather than practical utility. Luxury goods companies achieve extraordinary profit margins by selling products that cost far more than their functional value, proving that perception creates more wealth than practicality. These companies understand that wealthy customers pay premium prices for exclusivity rather than functionality, creating business models built entirely on artificial scarcity and social signaling. Luxury brands create artificial scarcity and exclusivity by deliberately limiting availability, making their products more desirable through restricted access. Companies maintain waiting lists that stretch for years, forcing wealthy customers to purchase other items while hoping to qualify for their desired products. Some luxury manufacturers produce fewer items than market demand requires, creating secondary markets where products sell for multiples of their retail prices. The global luxury market serves wealthy consumers who use expensive products to signal status and success to their social circles. Luxury purchases prioritize social signaling over practical utility, with customers paying enormous premiums for products that perform identically to much cheaper alternatives. These buyers understand their purchasing prestige and social positioning rather than superior functionality. Luxury companies invest heavily in brand building and marketing campaigns that create emotional connections, justifying premium pricing strategies. These marketing investments generate enormous returns by convincing customers that luxury products provide intangible benefits worth extraordinary price premiums. Celebrity endorsements and exclusive events associate luxury brands with glamour and sophistication that customers want to project. Some luxury goods appreciate in value over time, making them investments as well as consumption items that generate financial returns. Certain luxury products have outperformed traditional investments, appreciating substantially over decades while providing social benefits during ownership. The luxury industry benefits directly from growing wealth inequality, as the rich accumulate more disposable income for high-end products while expanding their desire to differentiate themselves from lower economic classes. This dynamic creates expanding markets for ultra-expensive goods that serve no practical purpose beyond displaying wealth and status. The luxury goods industry demonstrates how perception and branding create massive value beyond functional utility, revealing fundamental truths about human psychology that successful entrepreneurs have exploited across every generation and industry throughout history. These psychological patterns reveal the true mechanics of wealth creation across every industry and era. The pattern is crystal clear: across 4,000 years of human civilization. Every generation thinks their wealth-building opportunities are completely unique, but the fundamentals never change. Roman olive oil merchants controlled scarce resources that everyone needed, just like today's AI companies control algorithms that every business requires. Medieval guilds monopolized essential crafts, while modern tech giants monopolize digital platforms. The methods evolve, but the principle remains identical. Massive fortunes come from controlling scarce resources that society cannot function without. Data centers alone consume 500 terawatt-hours of electricity annually, creating enormous demand for energy infrastructure that powers our digital economy. The next trillion-dollar industry is being built right now by entrepreneurs who understand these timeless wealth creation principles.